Hey everyone, I'm Rye Myers, your Broadway and Entertainment BFF, and you're watching another episode of my live talk show series, Live with Rye. I'm so thrilled you are joining me. Hey, listen, before we begin, I have a huge favor to ask of you. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you never miss an episode of Live with Rye. By subscribing, you get notified every time I go live, every time I post a new video. Basically, you get an exclusive first look before anybody else does. So smash that subscribe button. And lastly, listen, I love being able to bring you some of the best content in the entertainment and Broadway world as your entertainment and Broadway BFF with some of the best people in the entertainment and Broadway pop culture world. But I can't do it without your help. So if you are so inclined and you are able, I'd love if you'd consider going to ridethenewsguy.com/donate and making a donation if you're able to. You can also scan the QR code if you're joining from a laptop or desktop if you want to as well. You'll also see it scrolling across the bottom of your screen as well throughout the remainder of the show, ridethenewsguy.com/donate. So you can head over there to make a donation. I would so appreciate it, and it means the world to me. And now let's welcome my very special guest, someone who is just an incredible performer, a triple threat, and might I say a very handsome Broadway performer as well. Please help me welcome the incredibly talented, the wonderful, the handsome Charlie Williams.
Hi, right. What a good intro. Thank you.
You're
Hi,
welcome.
everybody.
It's very true. It's very true. I mean, you're very dashing, and you've been known as, one of the sexy Broadway ensemble members. So
That was back in my youth, back in the good old days. Now I'm more like Glenn Close and Sunset Boulevard, but whatever.
Oh, God, no, not at all. So first, how have you been holding up over these last 14 plus months since the pandemic began? How are you doing? How is everything holding up for you?
I'm alive. I'm like, and I'm here. Like, I'm still alive. It's all good. I'm in Tokyo, Japan right now. Who would have thought? Setting a company of Frozen out here in my 2-week quarantine, just about to the end of it. So I'm one of the lucky ones who's found some work during this crazy time. But I'm here.
You know what? That's all you can say. I've said that too. I'm here. I'm surviving. That's all we can say. I mean, I'm so glad you were one of the lucky ones able to find work. How when you weren't working, how did you maintain your time? Did you able to take up a new hobby or bake something? I know sometimes people this last year have come up with a new hobby. They bake something.
I should have done that, right? You have a year to yourself, and your whole life you say, oh my God, if I just had the time, I would, speak Spanish. I'd learn a new language or something. Well, I didn't do any of that. I recently bought a Nintendo Switch, so I'm basically in Zelda world for a long time every day. But no, I've just, I've been in Hell's Kitchen the whole time for the past year where I lived before, and I've just been kind of waiting out the storm and, day by day. It's been actually really great,
Yeah, no, I agree. It's all right. I haven't done any of those things that I mentioned either, as far as cooking or baking or taking up something new. So no judgment on that end. But that's wonderful that you have found Nintendo Switch. I hear that that's quite fun for those who enjoy it.
It's a great waste of time if anybody needs. It's helping me in quarantine quite a bit.
That's all that matters. So amongst a long list of Broadway credits to your name, you're also the Associate Choreographer of Disney's Frozen the musical, which you're in Tokyo right now for. How did that position come about, and what does an Associate Choreographer do for those who aren't aware or don't know what that is?
Sure. It came about because I've been working with Rob Ashford for many, many years now. So I kind of just go where he goes. So ever since we did How to Succeed on Broadway, I've just been kind of like hanging on to his coattails as he does these awesome gigs, and I'm lucky enough to be brought along. So Frozen kind of goes in that same category. We've been working for years, and then I was doing Miss Saigon, and then Rob was like, hey, I'm actually, cat's out of the bag. I'm going to be the choreographer on Frozen. So it was like a big, oh my gosh. So I finagled my way into being associate on the show. And that was, 4 years ago, maybe over 4 years ago around. And what I do on the show is I helped create it in Denver in the choreography department. And we did an out of town tryout. And then we moved it to Broadway, and an associate kind of, just, helps run the choreography department of the show, and then helps maintain the show. So I clean the show, sometimes pop back in, and I would cast the show. I mean, there's so much recasting and casting that goes into these big shows. And then we set the tour, and then I set Australia, and now here I am in Tokyo.
Wow, that is exciting. What an awesome job. So do you sometimes have say then during the casting process for new companies, when it comes to dancing and stuff? Do you sometimes get to wear your creative hat with the casting directors and,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. That's one of my favorite parts of the job is having these big auditions and helping people, feel comfortable. Cause I mean, as you know, like I know auditions, I hate auditioning. So anytime I hold these auditions, I really, really try to make it a fun room to be in and kind of, let some of the air out and just let people have a good time. I really feel like that's one of my favorite things to do. So it's good.
Well, that's good. Well, speaking of that, making people relax and everything, and making people feel good, you have been a light and a much needed relief during the brunt of the pandemic with your daily Corona thoughts and positive affirmations and all of those things that made us smile and laugh in a good way on Instagram. Was the hope of that to make people laugh? Did you really just put that out there to make people stay better, or was it just like, I'm in the moment, I'm here in the midst of quarantine, and I'm going to do this?
Right. It's actually so crazy because out of every crazy thing I've ever done in my life and put on the internet or whatever, those damn Corona thoughts, I get more feedback on that of people were just like smiling and laughing and, the daily sort of check-in, and whether I was, pissed off that day, which is probably usually, or the randomness of the whole thing, people just really sort of connected with that. And I get a lot of people asking. So the point is, no, I was bored out of my mind. At the time I was living in my 300 square foot studio apartment, and it was full lockdown, and, it was scary. I lost my job, and people would yell at you online if you even went outside for a walk, there was so much negativity. So part of it was releasing my own anger to be like, F those people, blah, blah, blah. I was just kind of letting go, but it kind of came out in a funny way. And then people were laughing at my plight, and I just kind of went into it. And anyway, I'm glad that it made some people smile.
Well, yes, it did. And I'm glad that you took that and were able to make people smile, even if it was unintentional. You didn't realize it was going to, because we need some positive light out in this world. And I'm glad that, in the brunt of it, as you said, people were so negative, you were able to do that. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. I thought they were great. I quite enjoyed them.
Good.
So while we in America anxiously await the return of Broadway and live performance, Australia has been ahead of the game, which is where you were just a few months ago, and is currently performing live theater with shows close to full capacity, from what I understand. Now, you mentioned earlier you got to be a part of launching the Australian production. What was that experience like, and what was it like to finally step back into a theater? That whole process must have been thrilling, exciting, but also overwhelming too. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a mix of so many emotions. It was also the first time I've set, it was the first international company of Frozen. And then it was also my first time setting an entire company by myself as far as the choreography department goes. So, and it came after being, inactive for most of the year. So I was rolling myself out of my apartment, I don't even know if I can dance anymore. And then kind of thinking about helming, and being at the front of the room for this production, I was scared. I was I don't even know if I'm I feel like I'm not even in the business anymore. I really did feel I did feel like Sunset Boulevard. I was I don't know why I'm frightened. But I showed up and it worked. And then to go into rehearsals and, it was like riding a bike, it was it was nothing had ever changed, and it was easy breezy. But there was moments in time, like that first day in the theater when we walked in and just being amongst those empty seats and knowing that we were bringing, I think we were one of the, if not the first, big musical theater production to happen after COVID-19. So kudos to the Australian government for getting this, the whole situation under control to allow us to do that. And kudos to Disney for taking the risk, because at the time there were so many protocols as far as mask wearing and testing and zoning in the theater, which is a big thing about like zone A and B as far as the house and backstage goes, which is you don't want to like cross contaminate those zones. So anytime during tech or in previews, if I would have to run backstage for some reason, which didn't happen very often, but it was like a sci-fi movie where you go into the astronaut like goes into the like decontamination chamber and like I had to decontaminate myself to go between the zones. So it was different in some ways, but a lot like riding a bike. And I felt so lucky the whole time I was there.
Wow. Well, that's what I've heard, is that the Australian government does seem to have it under control. They were very, cautious with how they did it, but also very good, because now they've got live theater there. What was Australia like? Did you get any chance to get out and see a little bit of the country at all, or see the city where you were staying in?
Yeah, we were in Sydney, and actually, and before, side note, before it was around Thanksgiving 2019 is when I went there to cast the show. Right before I actually jumped into the Broadway company of Frozen as a performer. It was a very random thing. But when I was there before, when I was casting the show, it was during the Australian wildfires. So I was like, all these like horrible disasters are happening every time I go to Australia. But the whole thing was just an incredible time. And I did get to see a little bit. It wasn't quite the time, even though they have it under control there, it wasn't quite the time to travel unnecessarily. You know what I mean? Like traveling was still a little bit tricky. I had to do my 2-week quarantine in Sydney when I went back,
right,
where you can't leave the room and you can't open the doors, and kind of similar to what I'm in now. So I didn't get to quite go see the Great Barrier Reef and travel to the Outback. And, it wasn't really the time to do that. So that was kind of a bummer, but hopefully I'll go back and work on it some more and do all those things then.
Yeah, hopefully you get to soon. Is there much of a difference between when, and taking sort of COVID out of it, but is there much of a difference between Australian theater and Broadway here back at home? Or are things sort of the same? Do you find that the performers sort of are the same way and the shows are the same, or is there a big difference? Again, aside from the fact that they're in better shape pandemic-wise than we are.
Yeah, no, I mean they're very similar. They have a great theater scene there in Melbourne and Sydney. It's very similar to Broadway in the fact that they have sort of a little bit of an area. It's not quite like Broadway, like where you can kind of walk down and be like theater, another theater, another theater. It's a little bit more spread out, but they have a lot of shows running there, and the performers are great. They have a little bit of a different way of lifestyle there. They're a little bit more laid back than the sort of New Yorker, go mentality. But they're lovely people and lovely time, and they make great theater. And the show Frozen there is it was almost an exact replica of Broadway. So they have all the bells and whistles there too.
Wow, did you find when rehearsing, was it a longer process because everyone was in quarantine, or did they have were the cast members in Australia a little bit more ready and prepared? Because I don't think they were in as long as quarantine as we were. Was there much of a issue to get back on their feet and rehearsing again, or?
That's a great question. The answer is no. The short answer of it is we had 4-week rehearsal just like we do in Broadway, and then we had a 2-week tech period, 2-week preview, and then we opened. So it was an 8-week process, along with plus the 2 weeks of quarantine before that. So 10 weeks total. But yeah, we all kind of went in there trying to find our sea legs again as far as rehearsals go. And I think everybody kind of figured out. On the first day, I kind of, again, tried to make everyone feel really comfortable. And, we all were kind of seeing if it still worked, and like seeing if we, could still do what we did before. And, we all, of course, we all, maybe I know my costumes would have had to be let out a little bit, but like, we all kind of found it again, and it worked great.
Oh, you know what? If the costume has to be let out a little bit, if that's the only problem, then
Exactly.
I know I'm very interested to see as you start to go back, how cast members will adjust, and yes, or if it's just costumes that need to be adjusted and little things here or there, hey, that's okay,
How cast members will adjust and waistlines will adjust. We will all be okay. It's all good.
We'll never hold it against anyone.
Exactly.
Was there something special you took away from your time while in Australia that you hope to implement back here in the U.S. theater? Was there an experience or something special that you experienced in Australia that you want to come back and implement here in the New York theater scene or on Broadway, in your work in New York?
Well, I guess there's two answers to that. One is, like I said, the Australians sort of have, in a way, that sort of I'm kind of blank. These are blanket statements here, but like this sort of a little bit more laid back feeling than the New Yorker sort of, just the drive and the hunger that all the New Yorkers have, that you have to, make it there. Right. So I kind of really enjoyed seeing the process from a little bit more laid back, where we still got our work done. We weren't like lazy about it, but it's just a little bit more of a joyful atmosphere. I'm sure also, I will say with that, is the fact that we all have, I think we all are realizing over this past year how lucky we are to be able to do these things. So I think a lot of the sort of, maybe it wasn't even the Australian European style, it was just that we're all so grateful to be back in the room again. So it was, things that you might have complained about prior to the pandemic. I don't think nobody was complaining about being in that room, or doing any of it. We all were just so grateful. So I'm hoping that we can all hold on to that in the future, going forward.
Yeah, I hope so. That's really special. That's something really special that I hope so as well. As somebody who's a non-performer, I hope, just for camaraderie purposes and, purposes of, the theater tradition and stuff, I hope that happens.
Yeah. So, and you know what? And outside of the theater, like hopefully we all can just be a little bit more grateful every day.
So. I hope so. That's such a good point you mentioned. I hope so. And I hope that New York sort of adjusts too. I mean, you were saying in New York, we have that, go mentality. It's like make it or break it. I saw during the pandemic, and I hope it continues, that sort of realization of like, not everything needs to be so serious. Not everything needs to be, go. I guess it's a little bit of gratefulness, a little bit of like self-centering, but I hope we take that with us. And, as we start to reopen and get our economy and city back, that people, we take a step back and we're not that, dog eat dog, go, fast paced, type of city again, because, it's good to take a step back. It's good to, still be motivated, but to, not have that, I think.
Yeah, I think there's there's a gentleness in some of it that I think doesn't inhibit your productivity. You know what I mean? There's a way to do both and be joyful. So, well, you and I got it right. So let's just take that forward for everybody else.
Yes, that's all we can do. Anybody can make a difference. So as we put that out in the world, spread to everyone. So, so as we mentioned earlier, you're in Tokyo. So at the time of this recording, you're in Tokyo preparing to bring Frozen there. What are you most looking forward to with this experience now in Tokyo? And what are there going to be challenges such as language barriers? Are you worried about like the translations and hopefully getting everyone on the same page? What are you looking forward to?
Well, yes, to answer, there is definitely going to be a language barrier because I, shocker, don't speak Japanese. And, but I will say like I said, I'm almost at the end of my second week of quarantine. So I've been on Zooms every day, and watching how the Japanese go about their rehearsal process is very different than how we do it in the States. Mm-hmm. So they're already rehearsing right now because it's with a theater company. So they already are like full-time employed, whether they're doing Frozen or another show. They kind of all exist as sort of more of like a traveling group of performers. You know what I mean? It's almost like a Shakespearean sort of, that sort of group. So I'm looking forward to just seeing how they want what they need from me. You know what I mean? Like they're rehearsing right now. They're not doing any dance, obviously, but I've tuned in on Zoom to a couple table reads. It's all in Japanese too. It's not in English. the whole show. So that's something, but it's almost like watching, I was nervous about it because I was like, obviously I've already seen Frozen 1,000 times, and I'm like, oh gosh, am I gonna have to sit through this and not understand anything? But it's almost, it actually, I was surprised that I kind of enjoyed watching it in Japanese, maybe even more because you connect, since you're not connecting to the words, you're connecting to the performance and to the to the acting of it and the emoting of these emotions. So I was finding myself connecting to things that I never even connected with before. It's like watching an opera in another language. You know what I mean? You literally just trying to connect to that person's heart and what they're saying without language. So I'm really looking forward to that aspect of this whole situation.
Well, that's really exciting. When does the production open? Like, how long are you there for, and when does their production launch?
So I'm here, it's the same thing. So I'm here for 8 weeks, and we open on June 24th. We open on the 24th, and then I fly back the next day.
Wow. You are go, but I'm so happy that you're working and you're getting to do these experiences. But oh my goodness, you're going to want to come back to the States and not like work or want to do anything for a bit because of all the time travel, all the traveling, and all the time zones.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Right. When I get back after this 10 weeks, I'm going to be on the beach somewhere. I'll be on Fire Island if anyone needs me.
As you should be, that's for this long time. So what has been your favorite project you have worked on Broadway, performing creatively, and why? I know you've done so many shows, but is there a project that you hold dear to your heart?
Well, I hold them all dear to my heart, right? It's like children. I can't pick a favorite. No, I think the thing that really kind of, the first time I worked with Rob on How to Succeed and being able to be an assistant choreographer on the show and dance in the show. And I loved that movement. And I feel like I got to really put some of my voice into that movement in the show. And so for the show I was still kind of wide-eyed about the whole Broadway thing. It was my second Broadway show. We got Tony nominated for the choreography that I helped create, and got to dance every night. So I still was like, pinch me, I just felt so grateful to be working, and the cast was so awesome. We still keep in touch. That, how sometimes you have cast that you just bond with. And so that whole group was incredible. And, I started working with Rob, and here I am now. So I'm still working with him. So that really changed my life and my career. So I would say How to Succeed.
That's really special. I wish I had seen How to Succeed. I was not seeing Broadway shows at the time. I was still living back home in the burbs. So but I hear it was a very special show, and a lot of people who have seen it or who have been a part of it have said just how special it was. So that's really wonderful to hear.
Yeah, it was a while ago. So now when I say that, people are like, oh, I was in 5th grade or something. I was like, I'm getting older, but yeah.
I think it was right around the time I saw my first show, which was 2011. I saw American Idiot. So that was my first Broadway.
Yeah.
It was 2011 and 12 when How to Succeed opened. So
yeah.
No, that's great. I'm so fascinated by you. You're so talented with dancing, singing. You have it all. I could never. I used to perform, and I was a terrible dancer. How do you do it night after night and stay so in shape and intact to be on point for the next day and the next evening, and keep your body also physically and mentally and emotionally prepared as well? Because I've seen you in quite a few shows. These dance moves are not easy at all. So.
Yeah. Well, it's like I was always that kid who just had too much energy. You know what I mean? Like I had ADHD and had to run around I was a nightmare. I was a nightmare child. I'm a nightmare adult, so some things never change. But it's just what I do. I need to move. I need to run around and move. And dance class was something that really was a help to me, truly more mentally than physically. You know what I mean? Like it like calms me down, and it just helps me in so many aspects of my life. So that's why I started taking dance class. And my mother, like when I would throw temper tantrums, she's like, just go to dance. Like, we got to get you to dance right now so that you can like leave me the hell alone. Like, so in the best of ways. So I think that just carries on in life. Like, that's why the pandemic, especially with the gyms closed and the, no dance classes, no performing, was a really new thing in my adult life to be like, wait, that's my coping mechanism. Everybody has their sort of things that they do to figure it out. But physical activity, as far as dancing and going to the gym and keeping, fit, has just been my coping mechanism for when the darkness starts to take over. So it's been it's easy for me because it's what I like to do. It's like someone who has a yoga practice, they just need to do yoga. That's their thing, Yeah. So,
I'm always so enthralled, especially by dancers. As I said, I used to perform when I was younger, and I laugh. I say I hung up my dancing shoes in 2012 and doing what I do now. But I was always terrible at dance. I could get the singing and acting fine, but dance, it never clicked with me. I was always in my head, and I had 2 left feet. So I even took dance class for a bit, a musical theater dance class. So I was terrible. So I really commend, look up to, applaud, and have such respect for dancers and performers who can do all.
Thank you. There's room for everybody, even if you have 2 left feet and 10 right toes, right? Everyone's welcome in the dance world.
Yeah. Well, as we start to see the reemergence here in the city of theater slowly, and we start to get to the reopening of Broadway, what do you hope to see as for the future of theater as we come out of this time? What do you hope that we've taken away from this past year that will happen in live theater and make it different and change as we come out of this digital world and back into the theaters and back into doing what everyone loves and everything like that? What's your hope for the future of theater?
I have a lot of hopes for the future of theater. I mean, we are in such an exciting time. We're in such a scary time. We're in such a, so many emotions are going and on high right now, especially in our theater business. We're in such a crazy space trying to, as we all know, trying to get back from COVID, because no other industry is quite as devastated really as our industry is. Because there is no sort of, we'll do outdoor dining, or we'll like do this sort of thing, or there's no sort of way to do it unless we do it full out. And so I hope that, number one, I hope that we can figure out a way to find some semblance of the life we had before in the theater as far as shows goes. And I hope we don't all have to sit 6 feet apart or do some, hopefully we'll get back to some normalcy. New normalcy, I guess I should say. And then I also hope that, right now we're looking for new voices and new stories to tell, and people of color are finally getting a voice that they should have had a long time ago that, hopefully now they will have. So we're telling different stories. We're telling them in different ways. So I want to get the engine running again for Broadway, but I also want it to be under the right circumstances. And, there's new things coming out. Actors Equity is going through some changes, and I hope that we can do it all at the same time. So that's my hope for theater, that we can still bring it back without but bring it back in a better way, and continue on the road to equality for everybody.
I hope so. Yeah, I'm confident. As somebody who's on the outside, I'm confident that there's a lot of stuff being done, and that hopefully it will come back bigger and better. And I think it needed this refresh. Not that it needed COVID and the pandemic to hit, but I think this refresh was needed to really have everyone just look at, how they were, and even an industry that is generally so accepting and so open, really look at itself and say, how we can do and need to do better. So
yeah, exactly.
Very important. So what have you learned about yourself as a performer? I would say over these last 13 plus months in the pandemic that you'll take with you as you perform live on stage again. Has this process taught you anything that will help you as a performer that you've learned about yourself?
Yeah, I've learned a lot of things. I mean, I think now I'm also entering an age where, you know, I'm an elderly dancer in the dance world. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying I'm, already I hear people's eyes rolling, but I'm like, uh, I'm, as a 33-year-old trying to figure out what what's next and how I'm gonna, when we do come back. I don't really think I'm in the space right now to be going and uh, auditioning and be like, I really need this job. Like, I've kind of done that, and I need to figure out what's next for me to grow and give someone else a chance to get in there. And like, these young kids are now twirling so much better than I ever did that I'm like, I'm not going in there and trying to now outdance the kid who just graduated and is hungry for it and ready to like bop my his face. Like, I don't need to do that anymore.
Right.
So I'm trying to find a way to pass the torch respectfully and gracefully. But as far as performing goes, I think I've found some things even in the darkest days of the pandemic of joyful, just the importance of taking a step back and breathing. So I think as a performer, hopefully it'll make me more grounded than in the performance. I mean, than I was before, just because, like I've said a couple times already, it just the hustle and bustle and the hunger and the drive of trying to make it in the city, which I've been doing for the past 11, 12 years. It's been exhausting. So when we finally took a step back, like you were saying, and took a step and took a breath, I think that's just going to make me a better performer if I can continue that on and not just be sort of frenzied. Because I feel like, especially the past few years, I've been a little bit frenzied, if that makes sense, just about just go, go, go. So hopefully that'll help me in the long run.
That's great. That's really great. What advice do you have for aspiring performers, specifically aspiring dancers who want to do this professionally and they don't know where to begin, or they are beginning and they're maybe stuck where they are? What advice would you have for the future of performers and dancers?
Yeah, I think it's just do it because you love it, and then as soon as you stop loving it, and as soon as you stop enjoying it, don't do it anymore. Period. Like, don't do something you don't enjoy doing, and if you do enjoy it, then absolutely go for it. There's so few things in life sometimes that we can find happiness and joy in. I'm sort of really on that on that kick, if you can't tell, of like, if it feeds your soul, then my God, please do it. Like, please don't let any sort of insecurities or shame or I'm not this, I'm not that stand in your way of something that feeds your soul. You know what I mean? Like, I think it'll only elevate the entire industry if it's full of people who are truly being fed, soul food, and in a good way. So if that's you, then please come on in. Like, we're waiting for you. So, and if it stops being fun and exciting, then move on because we don't want any. We have plenty of those people. We don't need those people anymore, and that's okay too. Like, move on and find something that does make you really happy.
Exactly. That's such great advice. Well, as we get ready to wrap up here, Charlie, where can we keep up with you, follow you, and keep up with all the awesome things that you were doing?
Yeah, I think I'm still old school. I have my Instagram. It's just IAM Charlie Williams. There you go, right there. I usually try to update anything on there, just my shenanigans and
your stories
whatever I post on there.
Yes, your stories keep me alive.
Exactly. Well, there you go. There's plenty more where that came from. So check me out on there.
Right. And do you have are you on website or Twitter or anything else, or Instagram mostly?
Really, I think I'm right now. I'm kind of experimenting with everything. So just I have a TikTok or something, but anytime you'll see it on my Instagram. Any of my other things you'll update through there.
Great. Well, follow him on Instagram then at I am Charlie Williams. And if you want to keep up with me, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Rye_Myers, and on Facebook at /official Rye Myers. I love hearing from you, and let's continue this conversation. And also, as a reminder too, if you like what you were seeing, you can head to ridethenewsguy.com/donate and make a donation if you are able to. It's also scrolling across the bottom of your screen as well. So, Charlie, as we get ready to finish up here, is there any sort of any last words or anything that I didn't touch upon that you'd like to mention or talk about? I always like to make sure everyone gets to talk about what they went through specifically. Anything you'd like to leave us with?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for having me, Rye. This is great. And I hope that we, as things start to get going again, I hope you have many more things to talk about in the world of theater as it opens up again. So I thank you for having me.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Well, I'm glad it worked out. Thank you for doing this and being so gracious, even though I know you are in lockdown, to still be able to give an interview, even though we're, 13 hours ahead. I still appreciate that, so that means a lot. And so thrilled you came on. Thank you.